Hey, welcome back everyone. It is now November 16th of 2022, and we are just getting closer to the final episode of Star Wars Andor that's going to have a big tease and or connection to Rogue One, a Star Wars story. We'll talk about that a little bit later. They're also beginning to work on Season 2 as we speak. Tony Gilroy is getting ramped up for that. However, a lot of fans are really looking forward to shows out there like Bad Batch 2, Mando 3, Ahsoka, and more by John and Dave. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way guys, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, where we stand today is that John and Dave are finding different avenues to take to really steer things in the right path for the Star Wars universe. We already know that everything related to Disney and Lucasfilm is that they are ultimately trying to achieve balancing Star Wars Legends, mixing in together with the Star Wars canon that already exists, and exactly how they're going to be able to achieve all of their goals in mind to really give the fans a fresh, new experience. Now, on top of this, what's really all the more exciting has a lot to do with what's been going on behind the scenes over at Lucasfilm and what J.J. Abrams recently had to say about something that Disney and Lucasfilm never wanted him to say at all when it came to the Star Wars sequel trilogy movies, and we're going to tap into that right now. So, with that being said, we already know that JJ has not been coming back for Star Wars for a very long time. He absolutely refuses to come back. He himself even said that he's done. He has no intention to return to Star Wars, not even a TV show. So, that brings us to where he was able to say some big things about something that almost happened, that Disney never wanted to get released to the public, that he actually said to the entire Star Wars fandom. Now, with Lucasfilm working on many new Star Wars projects at this time, creators Favreau and Filoni are beginning to also prepare for their big announcements to take place next year. However, in a recent interview with J.J. Abrams and one that he got involved in, he went on to reveal one of the biggest secrets that Disney and Lucasfilm never wanted him to reveal. JJ went on to state the following: "When myself and Chris were working on The Rise of Skywalker, we actually had a big pitch to Disney that almost actually happened. We came this close to making The Rise of Skywalker Part 2 that was going to expand the story through the use of our deleted scenes and even a brand new story that was going to involve both characters Rey and Ben Solo. Myself and Chris had this idea that Disney at the time never wanted us to talk about our pitch, but we had this concept, or this idea, of the ending of Episode 9, and how it was going to work out in Palpatine's favor, where Rey gets corrupted through Palpatine's spirit, she turns dark, and we wanted to set up a reverse story, where now Ben Solo would become the hero, trying to redeem Rey after the darkness gets to her through Palpatine." Now, I want to pause here quick for a second. This is a masterpiece. I don't care what anybody says, you guys can disagree, it's perfectly fine. Everybody has their opinion, let's be honest about that. But this alone should have been done within the actual sequel trilogy arc. I think that this would have been extremely unique, extremely original to the Star Wars universe. Having the hero and the villain flip, I think would have been a very engaging thing in this franchise. Now, this is something, by the way, that JJ pitched to Disney and to the creatives over at Lucasfilm, and they were all for it. They were actually down to create a Rise of Skywalker Part 2 midway through filming this movie, and it was something that Kathleen Kennedy did not agree with, and we're going to tap into all of that in a second, and why it really fell apart and never really happened. And why also she didn't want this to happen. So, JJ putting it out there that originally they were supposed to have Rey get corrupted by Palpatine's spirit. She was going to become Empress Palpatine in a sense, where now the Skywalker comes back as the hero. Ben Solo, essentially, right? He has Skywalker blood, he is a Skywalker, just not by name. So, their intention was to make him the new hero for at least one movie to really wrap things up. Now, here's where J.J. Abrams got a little concerned as to why they cast some doubts about all of this and why Kathleen Kennedy ultimately shot this down and didn't want this to happen at all. alright? So he goes on to say, it's actually what we were teasing with those visions of Dark Rey and Empress Palpatine sitting on that throne. We wanted to create a part 2 to this film, and Bob Iger at the time thought it was a fantastic idea. This eventually fell apart, though, because Kathleen Kennedy did not want to risk breaking tradition in Star Wars of copying something that was done in the Twilight movies, or even in the Harry Potter franchise, of dividing things up into 2 parts. We came this close, though, to making it actually happen. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware about those 2 franchises, Harry Potter and Twilight, but the last film of each of those franchises divided the final film into 2 parts. You got, of course, The Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, and with Twilight, you got Breaking Dawn Part 1 and Part 2. They were going to do that with The Rise of Skywalker, dividing it up into 2 parts. The main concern by Kathleen Kennedy was it was going to break tradition and confuse casual fans into thinking that might be an episode 10 or something at the time. I don't know how that would confuse people if you're going to call it literally The Rise of Skywalker Part 2. That's nonsense. I don't think anybody would have gotten confused that it would be episode 10. But this actually does date back to what we talked about 3 years ago almost, pretty much. Where Chris Terrio came out and said, the co-writer by the way, that he really wanted to do a part 2 to The Rise of Skywalker. It's something that he always wanted to do. And JJ, in the long run, as it turns out, indeed pitched the entire idea to Disney and, of course, Lucasfilm, more so Disney executives, and they loved it. They were hands down all up to the idea. They were ready to do it. They wanted to do it, but it just didn't happen because, well, Kathleen Kennedy had disagreements. Now, sure, there's a lot of fans I can imagine right now that would have never wanted to see this. But there's also a lot of fans that would have really loved to see this. Could you imagine where they flipped the roles of Ben and Rey? Now, yes, he was redeemed at the end. That's fine. But what they wanted to do originally was they wanted to actually use one of their endings that they had in mind where Rey gets corrupted by the darkness, by Palpatine's spirit, and pretty much becomes the new big bad. That's what they wanted to do. There was a time and place where they wanted to do that. And if you think about it, Ben Solo as a character, when he's good, he didn't really get all that much screen time, nor did he get any dialogue. So I think that a final film like that, a part 2, it would have been beautiful, it would have been a perfect wrap-up to the sequels, and if anything, it could have made up for some of the mistakes of The Last Jedi, because they wanted to use the deleted scenes that were left behind for The Rise of Skywalker at the time, and as you all know, as we went over in the last video, Mark Hamill reveals that there was a lot of Luke Skywalker flashbacks cut from the movie. So they had a great opportunity here. Sadly, it fell apart. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this below in the comments. What do you think about a part 2 of Rise of Skywalker? Do you think it would have worked out? Would it have been a little bit too overboard? Let me know what you guys have to say about that below. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.